Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Community Preservation Committee meeting, Thursday, May 3rd, 6 p.m. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. Committee members, just John Francor.
We have a new member.
And we have a new member, Victor Farias from the Park Board. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
First item on the agenda is acceptance of prior meeting dated April 5th. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Citizen input? We have the documents. I would like to ask for a motion to table until the next meeting so that we can talk about the rules and regulations for that particular piece.
I'll make a motion to table the notes for our open meeting law modifications.
Oh,
I mean the citizen input.
The citizen
time.
The citizen input, yep.
Second. Oh, you mean the 3-minute thing?
No, we need to come up
we
with
haven't
a
set
We haven't set any of the
yet.
policies yet.
policy for
So
public
we said we
input.
were gonna look at a few of those pieces, so.
So we'll table it to the next meeting.
But we're still gonna have citizen input?
We will have
Oh,
citizen
okay.
tonight. I just wanna
Yeah.
table that particular item on the agenda so that we can come up with that for the next meeting. So I have a motion.
And
Have a second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Does anyone here would like to speak before the board this evening? You might come. State your name for the record.
Colin Dias, 560 Ray Street, Fall River. I just want to touch up on one of the applications for the fiscal year 19. This is for fiscal year 19. Mainly Dave Heber. I've been looking into the application, and from the research I discovered, I saw some things that I think some board members may or may not know that should be looked at. One of the contracting companies that was submitted through Haber's contract was A&W Contractors, which is located on 919 County Street, which was on the application. 919 County Street is also owned by Hanover Properties, which is also owned by David Hebert. And looking through the city assessor's website and the Massachusetts Secretary of Commonwealth's website, all three of the companies listed, which I believe are LOCs, weren't currently listed as open or open on the Secretary's website, which is so I would question the validity of the application, not the application, but the quotes given. I think there should be some questions asked on that. Other than that, that's really all I have to say on that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Anyone else? The next item on the agenda is funds available. I think Sandy's provided us with some information.
The one thing that I would say with the funding available is that it's very hard to actually know what that number is, because when we do get a number, it's based on money that's been collected tax-wise at that time that they do that. So it's really hard to really track what that number is available. The one thing I didn't see there was the fact that we have bonded, and it didn't show
60,000.
60,000 for this year being taken out of a bond. And was that a 3 or a 5 year bond?
It was
5
5
years.
It's 240, so it was.
5 year, right,
5
right.
years.
5 years.
5 years? Okay. So that's gonna coincide.
So that'll come right off the top of the.
Isn't that, that's
Right.
on here?
That's minus 60,000 in red that I put on the transaction.
Oh, okay.
The other thing that would have been nice to see is that, what is the amount left within the housing category? Because we've never expended the full amount of money that we put there. We've only approved one housing category.
Mhm.
So there is a number associated with that. I seem to believe that it's 165,586 based on subtracting the Dr. Fisk
Yeah.
number. But the number that we approved on CPA was different than a number that I've seen. I think a more recent number that I've seen is like 90,000. But I thought we
That's the
had-
1 year. The 90,000 is the 1 year, each year the 90,000 going in. That was the
Okay.
90, yeah. But I think you're right with this number here.
Okay, so the 165 is what's still there.
We will ask Sandy if at the next meeting, she could give us those balances in all of the other categories.
And on here, you still have 305,750 in housing. That's what's in housing now,
Okay.
okay?
So that would mean
And
we've
then
already
open
deducted the
space.
money.
That's
And
already
adding on
after the
Yeah.
Fisk house has been
Yeah.
deducted.
Right.
So,
Only because, like, we're given this $1.6 million number. What if 99% of our projects are all in the historical category? We need to make sure that if there's 90,000 on each of the categories at a minimum that we need to keep, we actually need to subtract another 180,000. So we need to.
No, we wouldn't need to, yeah, the only thing we would need to do is subtract the other two.
Right.
Right.
So
Absolutely right.
as we do vote and fund projects and that number starts dwindling down, we have to take that into consideration. That if, obviously, if the magic number for this year is 90,000, we automatically need to take 90,000 out because we'll have to put it into the housing category for next year.
If I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, the 1.370, with the exception of the 60,000 for the bonding, that's the accurate number,
yeah, that's.
taking into account the other money already in those other accounts.
Right.
Right.
So that's-
So I
that's
think,
what you're
I think if we use the 1.3,
Okay?
and then you take off the 60,000 off of that for the bonding, that's what we have available to spend on this year's projects.
And then if you want to keep anything in reserve for anything that might come up.
Exactly. Anything else on that funding piece? Moving on to number 6, the deliberations for FY19. So, Tony, if you want to go over the score sheet.
So, thank you everyone for sending me scores. There were a couple of applications where I had to make some assumptions because there were a whole bunch of extra numbers. So, John was one of them. There are 2 items on his scoring sheet, which was number 16 and 17. He had zeros there. So when I looked at all of the other numbers, he only had 5 ones. So for the purposes of having everything filled in, I automatically put ones in those 2 spots to give you a total of 7 number ones. So the way that we did the voting is, for the audience, our voting system is 1 point, 2 points, and 3 points. The lower the point, the better. It means it's your number 1 favorite thing, number 2, second favorite type projects, and number 3s. So when we add up everyone's numbers, obviously if there are 7 of us who voted all number 1, obviously that project would be in first place. And obviously if projects got a 3, they're at the end of the scoring sheet. Doesn't mean that they're out of it, it just means that as you rank it, well, we discuss the projects. Because some of these projects I gave it a 3, but only because the number was so high that I am in favor of some of these projects if it's at a different value.
Right.
So when I did grade it, I never said I'm grading it, and this is how I want it to remain. And that's pretty consistent with how we've done it the last 3 years also. For Charles, you had a whole bunch of numbers down on items 24 through 28. So I just took those out because everything else added up to 7 number 1s, 6 number 2s, and 6 number 3s. So I'm thinking, we're not doing a final vote today, right? We're just discussing these. We're not deciding which projects get funded today, correct? Because that's how we've done it in the past.
We've had 2 meetings. It's
Right.
taken us 2 meetings to do
Right.
that.
So I'm thinking after the deliberation today, some folks might want to change the numbers. Jimmy, I know one of the items we had asked the question of Stuart to give us his opinion on one of them. And you had an email response, and potentially one of these projects will be coming out.
Right.
So, do we want to touch on that
Sure.
first, or?
Yeah.
Sure.
So that was the bioreserve, it was
Number
number
2?
23, yeah, number 23, the second one. So that one was an application that they wanted to have us put away $386,000, but none of these properties are for sale on the market now. So those would just like be giving the money to the water board and having that in an account, and when the properties became available for sale, they would have the money to purchase them, but that's not allowed. Like it needs to be a actual property to sell already, so that one kind of is not eligible just on its own.
So I think we should have a vote
Yes.
if it's eligible, and also I make a motion that particular project is not able to
Eligible
proceed.
based on the response.
Correct.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
Any further discussion on that? Does everyone understand why we're taking that one out? Okay.
So,
Hold on a second.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So that's an example of why it's important that we do this scoring again, because a lot of folks put 1s and 2s, so that's going to change all of the other projects. Could affect 2, 3 other projects, so.
Okay, we ready to start?
Yep, we can start.
So the number 1 project, according to the scoring that was done prior to this meeting, is Durfee Lafayette at $186,000 in the historic preservation category. Would anyone like to elaborate on that?
I can elaborate. Obviously, we've given money to the Lafayette Durfee House for the last 2 years. I've been very pleased with the progress.
After a feasibility study.
Yes. So I feel very comfortable funding them this year. I've been excited to see the chimney stack. I haven't had a chance
I
to
saw
go
the
over
whole
there
thing
yet.
already. I've been inside and saw it.
Have
It's
you?
incredible.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Inside the chimney itself? or-
Yep. It's beautiful. Really great job.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really
It
great.
looks like
example.
a cement truck was hit, a bomb blew up in the inside right now, but.
I know, but it's gonna be incredible when it's finished.
Yeah, it really is beautiful.
So seeing the estimate and seeing all of the other things that could get accomplished, I mean, it would almost seem like
Yeah.
they'll get everything that they want.
Yeah, what's great about that is that they've actually gone to a class already on hearth cooking with BCC, so they're gonna be in collaboration with them. They're gonna start doing classes there, so it's gonna be educational, it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be a tourist attraction. I mean, they'll be able to do dinners and kind of be creative and kind of start kind of making money on their own, you know, so it's really good.
Yeah, I think it's a good project.
What are our feelings on the dollar amount?
I'm comfortable.
I'm comfortable with the amount they're asking for the next phase.
Yeah.
Does anyone feel uncomfortable with the amount? Okay. So 186,000 for Durfee Lafayette. We don't have any number 2, but we do have
So that means
2
that there's
number
another-
3s.
There should be another number 1 if we don't have a number 2.
There is.
There is.
I'm
There
sorry.
is.
The Francis Green.
Yes.
I was,
For $13,000, historic preservation?
I was very comfortable with $13,000, so.
I mean, it's a pretty basic project. I mean, it makes sense of why they want to put it there and keep it from being disturbed in a mess. And like I say, for what the cost is, it's like I think it's gonna look aesthetically nice, so I'm happy with it.
Everyone comfortable with the number on the project? Any other comments on the project? Moving on, 2 number 3s. The first, I'm sorry, 3 number 3s?
3 number 3s.
The first number 3 is Central Fire.
So, I looked at the report that we had been asking for, and I have to say, the report was well done, but I believe that it's missing a whole lot of stuff. When the Preservation Society had put in the request for the funding was to do an existing conditions report, and what this report is a exterior facade investigation and a roof investigation. I know that when I walked through the building, there were a number of locations where there was plenty of asbestos in the building that the fire department was constantly in contact with. I really wanted to see a full building investigation and not just a facade, not just a roof. That report also showed that a lot of the pieces in the parapets would need to be replaced. So any roof work, I think they're going to have to touch that parapet, at least 2 of the walls on that report. So I'm uncomfortable right now funding a number that I think is way too low. I wouldn't mind if it was higher to
I
make
thought
sure
the
that they
same thing,
can-
actually.
The what?
I thought it should be higher than what it is.
Right, I mean, 172,000, that doesn't seem like a lot, especially when they're going to be touching,
200,000.
Yeah, that's true,
Yeah.
200.
I thought the application was 172.
Hannah wants 172.
Let's see,
Number 13.
Yeah.
you're right, 200,000.
Yep.
So I thought that number was low considering the central, the cultural center, they're close to $500,000 and it's about the same square footage with their estimate for.
The other thing about the estimate too, in this exterior conditions study, they're also talking about skylight repairs and replacement, which to me it should go in tandem. I'm not a roofer, but that's my thought. So I mean, I would have thought more just for that reason, and I'm kind of willing to give more for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, that was one quote, right, in there?
Yeah.
One quote?
Well, there's one quote for the roof replacement and then another quote for the skylight repair.
Right, so technically it's one quote. So what we would be looking for is at least 3 quotes from 3 different contractors. So 3 different roofing contractors, 3 different.
Which you won't get on the city project.
Right.
Because we went through that as why we can't do that, because once you get those 3 quotes, you can't use those people, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So I still feel that the number is low, and that concerns me. I want them to do the work, but what I don't want to happen is, what's been happening is, it's underbid, and then they come back a second time asking for more money in year number 2.
Well, I thought of the same thing too, and I thought of just adding in the skylight repair also, but do you think that's even enough?
I think those parapets have to be fixed. But again, you know, it goes towards the original CP application before this exercise was to do an existing building condition report. The facade is important. Granted, you know, that needs to be fixed up. But is that more important than looking at where these firemen are sleeping? And I wanted to see that as part of that report. So there's a number of examples on many of these applications where the previous year, we've approved one thing, and the application through the process that happens after we approve it and goes to the city council gets modified, and then they do something different. And it's always surprising, and there's an example of 2 or 3 projects here that I can point to, but
I think, you're right, I think one thing we don't have that we do need is like a working group of our board to oversee the process more. I mean, I'd like to make a motion if I could right now to like create a working group of like 3 people, that way we can go through that.
can I recommend, and maybe I should have done this, is sent Stuart an email basically asking him what is the process of other communities once the city council or the town votes to approve it. Because what's happening right now is it's either going to purchasing or to somebody. I'm hoping that they're reading the application. I'm hoping that they understand what it is that we approved. Because RFPs are going out that are very different than the application and the money that we approved.
You're right.
So when they've come back and we've said, oh, here's a contract. Yeah, the contract looks good, approve it. I've never thought to go in and say, oh, that's changed.
Right.
Who changed it? It certainly wasn't us.
Right.
You know, and a good example.
I mean, even Brian Kurt for the Dwelly Street wall came before us a couple of meetings ago, or last meeting, just saying about how here he did the work, tried to find contractors who were gonna do the work, and then the project goes to the city, and they're not even looking at the application.
Right.
They're going on their own, and so like that process needs to be coordinated.
And the other piece is some of these projects go through the process, the RFP process, where they hire or they ask 3 architects to come in so that they can vote and pick which architect that they want. I think that should all occur here. If money for CPA is put into a separate account so that we're the stewards of that, I think that the entire process should be controlled here. Because, for example, the Sanborn maps, okay? So on the application, I list 5 particular Sanborn books. Project goes out, we've approved these agreements, comes back, I'm looking for one of the books that I put in that application. Not there because it got swapped out with a different book. Who decided that? I have no idea, but it's pretty upsetting to me because a particular book that I thought was important is still sitting at the 5th floor and it hasn't been restored or scanned. And there are multiple examples of that. And I would just like for this group to take ownership of all of that.
I'm not quite sure though, Tony, that this board has the authority to hire anyone but a administrative assistant. So this board wouldn't have the ability to sit as a oversight or a designer selection board in order to hire people on behalf of the city of Fall River. The authority isn't there in the statute, nor what I would say would be allowed, with due respect to this board, would be allowed through the process.
Wouldn't it be similar to when we make recommendations to the city
It's
council?
only a recommendation, they don't have to take them. They can turn them all back to us and say, we're not voting for any of them.
Right.
Or they can cherry pick on that list and say
Right.
no,
Well, but
because
that's
we
what
don't
I'm-
have that authority.
Right, but that's what I'm trying to say, if we had the 3 designers come before us, and we like one, and then make that recommendation to the city council or to somebody.
I don't think, because it's gotta go through a designer selection board. So for hiring designers, it's gotta go through that process on the city side. I mean, it would be, again, worth another,
Email.
to Stuart.
I mean, I think it's a great idea, and I definitely think that we should have more oversight. Thinking of the process itself, though, when they meet with these people, are they meeting at nighttime? Are they meeting during the day when we all work?
Well,
You know, like, I don't know when that,
That's important,
Well,
but
did
when I look at a applicant coming back a second time, and I know that I voted on their project before, and it's not what I voted on.
right?
I kind of
get it.
feel like, something's been pulled.
Some of that is,
Yeah.
some of that is not, I mean, we can say it's council, we can say, but when we write our funding applications, we're writing one sentence in there, and we need to send a heck of a lot more. We need
Yeah.
to have the funding application match the project funding agreement, so that we don't get caught up in this situation. Whether we're replacing doors, windows, roofs, we need to be very specific.
But Ken, do you think once the project goes out and they start working on a project, should we have a working group that is
Yes.
reviewing
I would agree with
the
the working group.
the invoices and stuff like that to make sure what is being done and being spent is what we said
Absolutely.
we wanted to do?
Absolutely.
I think on the final sign-off, we should have all the invoices, review the project, and then pass it over to,
Absolutely. I would have no problem if we put that on the next agenda. It's not on tonight's
Right.
agenda, so we wouldn't, have
I think
any
the thing about-
mechanism to do anything, but
The
I
thing
agree.
about the working group, I mean, like, we'd be able to like go offline, review it, and that the group would be able to come back and just do a little,
There are quite a few boards in the city who
Review
have
to
small
our
working
board.
groups. There's no voting ability, there's no authority of any kind on
Just
those.
giving
on
information to
those
everyone.
groups. They're working groups, they're not subcommittees.
yeah.
And all they're doing is just looking at the documents and then bringing back what they find to the board. The board agrees or doesn't agree, it's up to the board at that point to review the documents as a whole, if they don't agree with the findings of the work group.
I mean, I get what Tony's saying, but like if they were to like meet and, the meeting was gonna be at 11 o'clock in the morning, I know I'm never gonna be able to make it,
It's usually at 10.
Yeah, it's usually at 10,
Forget that.
but again, it would be
Anywhere
something
between
well
7 and
announced.
3 is I'm out.
Right, yeah.
And it's not videotaped.
Okay, we have Central Fire. We've got a lot of discussion on Central Fire. Does anybody have?
Well, I'd like to make a recommendation to fund actually in the structural study, the amounts for the roof replacement and the skylight, because I think,
Well, you said recommendation to fund it, but this is just deliberation. So
right, you're right.
You should say
right.
you're in favor.
Right.
Of
Right,
adding
the
the two
skylight
items
repair
together.
together, correct, yeah.
Okay.
So what would it be?
The total would be approximately 239,000 would be the two together. That, in the structural study, it's the roof replacement and the skylight repair replacement. That would be my,
I thought that was already in the 164 total.
No. No, the roof, the request is,
for 200,000.
yeah.
The request is for 200,000.
Yeah, so I have the roof and then the skylight's all included for 164.
But this is the actual
Oh, okay.
study report
Yeah.
that came out.
Alright.
So that was, I think that was an estimate when they put that through.
Okay.
But this is the actual conditions
Okay.
report. Sandy's got those others up there.
Alright.
That's why I just came up with those two together. But it's a few dollars less than that, but to round it off would be 239,000.
So Jim, on their bid, they're basically showing roofing 110,000, masonry and flashing 15,000, skylights 15,000, asbestos abatement 20,000, contingency change orders 4,500, subtotal 164.
That's what John's thinking of.
So, and the way that they get the 200,000 is then they have the architect fees, structural
Mhm.
fees, that's another 30,000. Then there's a thing called Fall River Direct Costs, which is paying the city
Yeah.
engineer to do his job again, which I disagree with that 5,000. And then there's a development cost. I don't know what that is, CDA
Advertisements.
advertisement, another 500. So based on this application, the skylight is included in the 200,000.
Well, why does it not correlate to the structural study though? I understand what you're saying, but when I mean, they are asking for 200,000, I see what you're saying, but why does this separate it out like that?
So I think when I asked Chris who had done the estimates, he said that he, as a contractor, had done some of these estimates. I don't know if this is the case for this one.
Well, it can't be because this is the one from the architect
I would
with the numbers.
go with that.
This one?
Yeah.
Right, that's what I
So
thought.
the 239.
Yeah.
I still think it's low, but anyway.
but that's,
Anything further on Central Fire? Moving on to the next, number 3.
Number 19.
Number 19, Public Schools Window Restoration Project, 417 Rock Street.
I didn't have an issue with this one.
I did, I don't
I was fine with this.
I like the project. I mean, we started with the roof. I mean, I know that it's just about starting, finally. I'm comfortable with it.
I would add that the amount of work that will be accomplished in the first year will be less than the Phase 2 and Phase 3 due to a full building study assessment, so. So we'll be doing design, but also doing the full building assessment.
Has the work started from last year's one?
The bids went out about 2.5 weeks ago, I'm sorry. The bids came in 2 weeks ago, no bidders as a package. So the bid is going, was re-advertised today and is going back out, and it is being broken up into 2 projects, roof being one project and accessibility being the second. So we're expecting quite a few bids on this separate project. Anything else on 19?
So we're comfortable with that number? And all I'm doing when we say we're comfortable, I'm adding the number here just so that I can add it up.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we know how far over we are. That we're going to have to cut back regardless of
Yeah.
what's on here.
Okay, the last number 3, number 22, Bioreserve Conservation Land Acquisition Project number 1. So this is the project that has all of the land
acquisitions.
pieces, not necessarily under agreement, but they're all for sale,
Yeah,
and they
we're under- yep,
and they
we're
all
100%
have
ready.
dollar amounts and ready to go.
I thought that this project, even though I'm opposed to it, is a candidate to be bonded.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yes.
It's the only way that we're going to get that property paid.
Right.
I mean, one thing, I mean, I don't know, I know the very first year we were all given from the Preservation Society, the City of Fall River Master Plan, and I reviewed it within the past month,
Yeah.
and everywhere in it, this exact application, it speaks of it immensely. Saving the bioreserve and doing as much as we can for it. So I think it's a great project, and
My only thing for opposing it, I have a couple of things. But, obviously, when they buy this land, they're never going to make it easy for you to get to it, even though, you know, conservation restrictions placed on it for passive recreation. The roads, they're unable, you can't use the roads to get
you
to
can hike
these
it.
properties.
You can hike through it.
Well, you gotta first drive out to Westport or Dartmouth, to then come back into Fall River to be able to hike it to get to here.
That's what hikers do.
So, but like I had
That's
told.
called hiking.
Like I had told
It's outdoor
them in the
recreation.
presentation, if they had a number in there that would advertise that, hey, this is city land, it's available for passive recreation, really inviting the public to these lots. That's what I would like to see, but like everywhere else that I go there, even on Bedford Street, do not enter, no trespassing. And I know we have very good intentions, but we're never, ever gonna be able to use that land.
Even if you.
I don't agree with that.
I
mean,
think the land's being used right now.
I think people hiking
Walking
through
right
that
through
all
it.
the time. I mean, now, this coming Saturday, there's a hike around, what type of pond, did you get your thing?
Yeah, but you know, I drove down to, down Bedford Street, down to the water, what's the name of that place? The water.
Water department.
Water department. I go down there, you know, look around, oh, looks good. I drive back out. Within 2 minutes, there was a police officer flying down the street. They wouldn't have been flying down the street if someone hadn't called them to say, hey, there's an unknown vehicle going down
Maybe you
there.
look like a criminal.
Uh-oh.
No, that actually, that happened to me, because we were walking there taking pictures of
Joint
the
drive.
tower, and we got stopped by
They
somebody.
make it tough to get.
No, I understand what you're saying with
I
that.
mean, we're using taxpayers' money, right? It should be available to the taxpayers. That's all that I'm saying.
No,
And they make it impossible for the taxpayers to use it, that's all I'm
Well,
saying.
maybe we need to like talk with the water board and hopefully put like on the.
Right, and I'm of the opinion that you don't fund them, so that they're forced next year to put things in place that make it a lot.
Next year, there may be 3 houses on these lots.
Right.
And then it won't matter anyway.
Look what happened with us not funding the St. Vincent Farm the first year.
That wasn't our choice.
No, but the first, no. The first year we were kind of skeptical. Because it came back to us the second year. The first year we were skeptical. The first year it was a big chunk of money, and we were kind of like, afraid's not the right word, but we were skeptical on using that funds for that year. We thought nothing would happen to it, and look where it is now. We should have bought the bullet that year and bonded for it, but we were new to this. It was our first year, so now we have houses going up. So who knows? Like Ken says, once this land's gone, there could be houses next year going up. So I'm for bonding this.
If they put houses on those lots, maybe they'll fix the roads.
Hasn't worked for the
There's
people
houses out there
Rock Road.
already. There's houses out there already.
We have houses on every street in the city, Tony, in the road to Harlem.
I think
That's
bonding
not-
this would be the way to go. Obviously, it's a big sum of money.
What number would I put here? Another 60,000?
I would say you'd put, you're gonna have to probably put about 77 to, well, actually, you should put about 80.
80,000.
Because you're gonna have your bonding cost, and you try and bond it out for 10 years.
That would have to be longer than the other one, like a
it's
10-year
definitely.
bond.
Okay.
We have no number 4s. We have no number 5s.
Number 6.
Mhm.
Number 6.
One number 6, right?
Number
Yeah.
10.
Yes, number 10. Anawan, number 6. 172, 930.
I really like this project. They've been working pretty good. The repointing, if anyone has gone to look at that, looks fantastic. I still think they need a little bit of cleaning, but I think it's such a big improvement. And this money will go a long way to just getting that museum finally open. So.
I agree.
Yeah. So the 174 opens the doors for people to come in.
Can we ask Michael?
Yeah, it should.
Can you state your name?
I'm sorry, Michael LePage, President, Fire Museum. We're looking at like late 2019, depending upon, when the funding is obviously good.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Any other questions on that one?
I'm gonna put the full amount.
We have one number 7. Granite wall, Lower Kennedy Park.
Well, I went by there a couple days ago. It's really in tough shape.
It is.
Right now it's blocked by Jersey barriers.
Yeah, those are fairly new, because when I had taken pictures a few weeks ago, they weren't there, and now it is. It seems like
Now,
the
is
wall
all,
crumbled even
are
more.
all the stones that was the wall there, or have they
They
been
were there,
removed?
they must took some of them out.
Because, did Chris say it was gonna be redone, like with the original
Yes,
stone and
he
like?
did.
Yeah, but I
So
don't
they
know if,
probably removed them and either put them inside the garage.
Believe me, they couldn't move those stones.
Yeah, that was
They
out
had
the
to
back.
take it out with a backhoe or
Yeah,
something,
yeah.
because those stones were big. stones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there may
because-
be some smaller ones missing that they'll have to replace, but I think for the
All
most
over the
part.
park.
Yep.
Yeah,
It definitely needs repair.
It does.
I don't know a thing about stonework, but I think it should be repaired.
I agree.
Yeah, I think the opposite. The fact that the wall has fallen down, there's barriers around it. I don't think there's anyone running on top of walls and jumping off walls. So I think there's a lot more important projects than repairing that stone wall. If it was the stone wall that's falling onto the sidewalk, that's a whole nother.
It
story.
is.
It is falling
It
on
is.
Is this the
Tony's falling
sidewalk?
right on the sidewalk
On
going
Middle
to Bradford
Street?
Do you wanna
Ave.
see pictures?
No, it's not
I-
Middle
It gets
I-
undermined.
What's street?
It's the other
Bradford,
street.
Bradford Ave.
Yeah,
Bradford
It's not
Ave.
Middle Street, it's the other street.
I
Yeah.
have pictures.
If that
I
gets
took pictures,
undermined,
I
you
can
told
show
me.
you.
By
I
any
really,
more water
I think it
coming
really
down the
needs to be
hill,
fixed
You don't have
myself.
the whole wall on
It
the
does,
side.
it's a safety thing, because also, it's holding up
Mhm.
The
it's
dirt.
holding up the
The-
dirt, so all of that's
the
gonna
park.
start, so the park's gonna start eroding,
Okay, well,
so, no,
I'm
I'm
still not in
sorry.
favor of it.
Look,
That's okay, that's okay.
I mean, I'm glad that
yeah, but look at, all of that's gonna start eroding.
so nature takes over. Big
So,
deal.
an Olmsted
You know,
Park,
I can
really?
show you-
An Olmsted Park.
I can show you 2 locations in the North Barrel ground where there's a gaping hole. That's more dangerous where the kids are going underneath back and forth.
This is
That's a
a-
whole lot more dangerous
This
than
is a
that one.
sidewalk, everybody walks right down the
You
sidewalk.
know, it's not on the cement.
It's close enough, when this, so
It's
what
right on the
happens when the
cement,
section
Tony.
right next to it starts to crumble?
We're not gonna agree.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna try to make you agree.
That's fine.
It's okay, Tony, we don't.
So I'll put 30,000 on it?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Okay.
Next item, number 8, we have one number 8, and that is Little Theater.
I really like this project. I've been wanting them for the last 2 years
Yeah.
to have their applications in place. I'm just happy that they've gone all the way through. If we can get that asbestos out of there, I think it's
I agree.
I was a
well
little
worth it.
disappointed that they didn't come back, an imminent threat, when they had said it was an
Oh.
imminent threat. They never came back to us and
Yeah.
asked for the money then, because if it would've came back with an imminent threat, then I would've gladly, my vote anyway would have been to do it, so.
If we have questions, Mike Akeem is here.
No, absolutely. My question was, at the time, it didn't come back. We had asked them to come back the next meeting, or
Oh.
send us a letter from the architect at the time that it was an imminent danger, that they were gonna close the building down, and all that stuff that they were saying, there's a possibility we won't be able to use it. So that never happened. The building's open, they're still using it. That's,
I think if it was me, I wouldn't want to go to the building department and get my building closed. Instead, I would want to.
Well, that was his verbal description of it, like that it was that way.
Right.
But,
publicly.
Yeah.
yeah,
So-
yeah, right, yeah,
Not
But anyway,
everybody
that's-
watches this.
yeah, right. I like the project, I mean, I would vote for this.
Put in the full amount.
95,937.
Okay.
Number 9,
We have
City
3
of Florida.
number 9s.
how many nines?
3.
Okay, so the first 9 is a boat ramp, 70,000, open space and recreation category.
My only thing with the city side, what do they still have out? One million plus they haven't finished? So we're gonna give them another chunk of change and we're not gonna, or we could use this money somewhere else. I mean, I like a boat ramp, but
Right. I mean, I was of the opinion that this is something brand new that they don't have, when there's so much that we need to fix in the city.
I also think that the application was done very quickly and not fully.
You can say that it was a poor application.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. So I'm not in favor of myself.
I was forced to grade it a 2 because I ran out of 3s.
Good job.
Isn't that used for public safety though, that? what
No,
they
that's,
wanna do there?
that ramp is not.
No?
No, it's to give more access to
Access
voters
to
coming
voters.
in.
Yeah, I know,
to-
but
yeah.
I thought maybe there was a public safety aspect or.
No.
I don't remember seeing that in the application that it was being used
I didn't see
for,
it. But I thought the way he was explaining it, but okay.
I mean, I still think all things considered, it's important to have a little more access to the waterfront and, you know, especially since as the city, we're trying to build up the waterfront and make it accessible. I think the boat ramp is probably a little more important than some of the other projects because, you know.
They get warranty fees, right?
I agree, but they have so
No,
much
not at
sitting
that
on now
level.
that they haven't
That's a state-
finished, so to
that's a-
give them
that's a,
more. I'd like to see some of the projects
The
knocked
harbor
out.
master takes care of it, but they don't, it's not so you to tie your boat up, it's so when you're coming in and out.
I know,
when
but
you're-
sometimes you can
Yeah.
have projects running concurrently and get them done, it
Well,
doesn't.
one disturbing thing still is the North Burial Ground.
Right, I know.
I mean, it's a city project, we voted for it, I mean,
That was 2 years ago.
that was the first
3
year.
years ago, that was
3
the
years
earlier
ago.
one.
3 years ago. So I mean, that one really needs to be moved on, and like I say,
Right.
this is another project that's probably gonna come before it, possibly, so.
But I think one of the factors that weighs in my decision-making is how many people are actually gonna benefit from it. And even though it may not have been the best application, and I know the city has other things, there's probably a lot of people that'll benefit from that. And I weigh that heavily when I make my decision as to who I'm gonna give funding to. How many people are gonna get the most benefit from it. And to me, this one probably affect a lot more people than some of the others, so.
You think that this is gonna affect a lot more people?
Than some of the
No, a lot
projects,
of
yeah.
people using it.
Yeah, more
I mean,
people
it's gonna be a very
using a
useful-
boat ramp.
If you're a
than-
boater.
Right,
But I'm saying
If
there's
you look at
probably
the-
a lot more people that are gonna use the boat ramp than maybe some of the other things that.
Well, I understand, but when you look at the population of a city and the number of boats that would be on the river, I think it's a very small percentage.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Not
I'm
anymore.
very sorry, I've been down there lately.
but it's not just for city boaters
Well,
either.
Would you say a
No,
thousand,
it's
a thousand
for
boats?
visitors
Oh,
coming.
it's pretty busy down there.
Yeah.
I mean, more than that on a
Yeah.
weekend.
Yeah, and plus you have the new restaurant that's opening down there.
I mean, I think it's definitely.
But they
I
got their
think
own
it's-
dock.
Yeah, but they
But you
can't.
can still get more
There's,
people.
there ain't that much access to, on that, even that restaurant, they fill that up too.
But this application is to have a place for the boats to tie up while somebody is backing up and taking their boat
Yeah.
or putting their boat out of the water.
Right.
Sitting in your boat, drinking a beer, waiting for your turn versus being tied up, I mean,
May not be a beer.
well, whatever it is. they decide.
I like the project, but I don't think it'd be built this year, would be next year, so I'd rather put it off till next year and fund it instead of this year. I mean, the chances of them getting it done this year,
But it's a fairly simple one.
Yeah, it's just pilings, right?
That's one of the things too.
It's pilings.
It's not a
Pilings on a
difficult project.
detachable, dock. It's in for 70, is the dollar amount bothering anyone? If not,
The 70,000?
yeah.
Yeah, it bothers me. I like zero myself.
Well, next meeting, we'll have an opportunity to
To make it a zero.
cast your vote.
So do you want me to put a 70,000?
I would love you to put 70,000.
I'll do that for entertainment purposes.
The next number 9 is park building, $100,000 under historic preservation.
Well, okay.
I'm not in favor of it this year, I'll say that.
I am very much in favor of it, but not this year, because I think a study needs to be done on that building, considering it was part of an Olmsted Park. And I think, I would rather see something well thought out than
A big rush.
just throwing a little bit of piecemeal to fix up a building that really is a beautiful building and has a lot of historic significance. And rather than throwing little Band-Aids, I would rather see it,
Yeah, I think it could
from a
be,
historical perspective,
I
I'd
think it
rather
could
see
be
that done.
a better thought out
Yes.
project.
I think it was a hasty application that needs some. And I am all for this project. I would love to see that done, but I think
I'm for a zero
there needs to be.
this year. And I would recommend that, they come back and with a better thought out project or a feasibility study to the building.
I would like an architect to be involved in the process.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So are we saying we do not want to recommend this one? Do we want to make a motion not to recommend this one to the next step?
I make a motion to not recommend this one.
I'll second that.
The motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
I'm opposed.
So in the next score sheet, this one will be shown as red for you not to put in a number.
Right.
And I'll have the new, how many number ones, how many number twos.
Thank you. Okay, next item We don't see a 10.
Yep.
Is it a 12?
Number 18.
No, there's another number 9,
Oh, I'm
the
sorry.
Niagara
Niagara.
bike path.
My fault.
I personally like this project. I mean, if anybody's travel on 195 and see that our bike path, it's utilized heavily
Mhm.
by walkers, bikers, kids fishing, adults fishing, and I think this is just gonna be a great reconnection
Especially
for
to
recreational
that
facilities.
part of the city needs
I
it.
like it.
What I don't like about this project, well, I don't like half of this project. The part of the project that included bringing the bike path down South Watuppa and then eventually taking you to Maplewood, I'm all for that. The part of which brings the bike path into the Niagara neighborhood goes through 6 intersections and is 250 feet away from an existing bike trail. I don't like that, and I don't think it's very difficult for our city planner and city engineer to sit together and try to figure that out without costing $45,000. I would be in favor for $45,000, which is the South Watuppa part. I am not in favor of the Niagara neighborhood, considering it's only 250 feet away from the existing bike path.
So what goes behind, say, Walmart, like that part, is that the part you're talking about?
It's the part that is west of 195, I believe.
You're talking about that goes up Warren Street? Is that what you're talking about?
One second.
Because there's a part that's very close to like Stop and Shop and the plumbing supply place. Is that the part you're talking about, Tony? Like that part?
No, I think
Like the Rodman Street part or the Warren Street part?
I'll show you the map in
I
one
think
second.
you might be talking about the Warren Street. Or maybe you're talking about-
So, on their application,
Yeah.
they highlighted where the Walmart is and where Chase Pond is.
Yeah.
In there. And everything in green is the existing trail.
Mm.
And the second part of this application was bringing the bike trail down this section and bring it into Maplewood. I didn't think having bike trails basically 1 block away from the existing bike trail as hiring a consultant, paying him $45,000 to figure that out. When,
Because it would used to be on the street anyway.
yeah, it's going through 6 intersections, so when we were talking about the Quikasham Trail and
Yeah.
and cutting across of it, it was the end of the world that cars are going to be crossing. Here we got 6 locations where that's happening. So, for me, the fact that you walk 1 block and you're at the trail, it bothers me. The second part of the application, which is this one, South Watuppa, which was Jimmy, you had asked, and they just put it in their application as, okay, I think it's great. And it would go down to the Beachery
Yeah.
and get you into the Maplewood neighborhood, which is pretty far away. So I love.
Hmm?
So I'm for $45,000 for that. I am not.
It makes sense. I mean, I bike avidly, and looking at that, you'd just be driving on the streets as a biker, and it's really not dangerous. I mean, it really is dangerous.
It is,
I
like,
mean, they're not
right
gonna
around it,
create
yeah.
a bike path off the sidewalk. You're gonna be,
Right, well,
Right.
it's a narrow, especially if you're talking like
But
Warren Street,
it's
it's
not gonna
narrow,
happen.
so I don't know how that would happen.
not
But
gonna
I
happen.
think our city planner and engineer can get together and figure out how to get the bikes not on the street around Trace Pond.
yeah, I agree. I will be, I'm for that.
So are we thinking about a motion there?
I'd like to
Mr.
make a
Dice?
motion to fund it for $45,000, which is half of their $90,000 request.
If it does go through, we'll specify in the
For
agreement
South-
what it's gonna
yes,
be, yeah.
For the South Watuppa path.
Mhm.
We have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
I-
Aye.
Opposed?
I
Okay, so
Okay.
right now, we are up to 1.1 million.
And what's that total?
1.2.
I think you said 3.
Oh, 1.3, well, you gotta take 60 off of that, yeah, 1.3. Next item,
So we have-
is 12s, right?
12.
Okay.
So actually, there's an 11. Why am I wrong?
No,
No,
it's
it's
not,
12.
there's a 12.
Sorry.
So the first 12 is Marine Museum, Battleship Cove, HVAC. 365,000.
One thing about this, there was only one bid even in general
Right.
for the air conditioning. Like, it seems like to me there should have been at least another one. So, right there to me is
Yeah, that
a
was one of
problem.
my issues too.
Well, like,
It was just one, yeah, I don't think they did a lot of.
that to me,
I didn't like the fact that, again, the exact same thing that the Children's Museum did, they went out, hired a HVAC contractor who came up with a plan of how they're going to put humidity and cool the space. And being that it's a museum, I'd like that ductwork to look much nicer than the ductwork at the Children's Museum. And if we fund this, it's not gonna look any different than what they did at the Children's Museum. I would feel comfortable having a number here for them to hire a architect/engineer to go through the process of designing a system versus going directly to a mechanical engineer.
Is that something you want to put a proposal in?
So I would like to recommend that we fund the Marine Museum for $75,000 to hire engineers and architects.
I am not in agreement with that. To me, I would recommend that we send them a letter saying that exact thing to stop for next year. That's what I think. And reapply in September with that recommendation. But I'm
Do
not
we have
in
a
favor of
motion?
it.
Do we have a second on Tony's motion? Do we have another motion?
If that motion doesn't pass, I make a second motion that we don't fund the Marine Museum this year.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I do have one comment. I think we should send them a letter saying that, exactly what Tony said, as far as hiring that type of an architect, to come up with a proposal and they can resubmit next September.
I would ask that what we do with all of the, for everyone who made it to the funding round, if we choose to amend or eliminate them out of this round, that we send a detailed letter to each one of them on why, since they made it to this round.
Yeah.
And we'll work on that and bring it to the board, the letters to the board before they get sent out. Next, number 12 is number 11. Former Elks Lodge, 200 Bank Street, 150,000 historic preservation.
So, on my earlier conversation about when we approved the project and then it got changed, so last year we approved providing this building with $50,060 or $72, and what we indicated was that it was to do 10 of the arched windows on the third floor. The paperwork that we have received showed 3 windows of the arched version. It had parapets in there, it had little windows near the stairs. When I walk on the exterior of the building, you wouldn't even know that those windows facing Purchase Street were ever touched. I know the glazing was fixed, but the trim work, the paint is still peeling from it. So that's pretty upsetting to me. The second thing was, which was the only other thing that I asked Mr. Fever to provide, and he did provide a lot of additional documents that we've requested, was I wanted a letter from an architecture firm indicating that they were involved with this project, because he had fired Van Trump. I did not receive that. So I don't feel comfortable funding this project because of that.
Did everyone receive the paperwork from Sandy with the invoices?
Three separate emails?
Yes.
Yeah. Like I say, looking at the invoices, it's like it's not 10 windows, it's 3 arched windows, and then stuff on the roof, it's not what we funded.
No, it's not.
So I'm of the opinion that I want to see those 10 arched windows restored. And then once those 10 windows are restored, I'm open to future requests.
Do we have the, does everyone have the AIA document signed by Vetrone?
That's on the original,
That's on the first document that Vetrone signed, that the work, that the invoices that were given on that project were checked by him.
yes. But that was for the 3rd-story windows, and it was based on the contract, which his AIA contract says, I'm doing parapet work, I'm doing some works on the windows at the stairs, and I'm only doing these 3 windows, but that's not what we had approved the year before.
I thought we approved last year all the 3rd floor windows.
Yeah, 10 third floor of the arch.
10 windows.
There's not 10 windows on that backside though.
But, well, there was, I believe, 5 in the front and then 5 in the back. So Ventrone signed off on the work that they modified in the agreement, which was 3 of those windows. They had the smaller windows, they had the roof parapet,
And this is why a working group will work
Right.
well,
I agree that Ventrone says that that work was completed, but that's not,
the work we.
That's
Well,
not
see, it
what
hasn't
we-
been complete because the windows are
Right.
falling out.
right, because his, when I asked him, this is a continuation of last year's application, correct? He's like, yes, so the previous year's application was those 10 windows, and he wanted to do the storefront, which is what this application is. So when we offered him to give 50,000 from the 150 that he was requesting, he basically said, yes, I'll take the 50,000 to do 10 windows.
Well, that's what's in the
Funding agreement.
funding agreement, is
Right.
10 windows.
So we have a letter from Vetrone saying the 10 windows were not done?
No, we have a
We don't even
letter
have a
from
letter.
Ventrone saying that he agrees that the 3 windows were done, that the parapet was done, that the flashing was done. I don't know who decided to change the terms of what we agreed.
And the contractor's documents reflect only 3 windows being done?
No, I believe it's 10.
So the contractor is saying the 3 windows are done?
The contractor is saying, you guys told me to do 3 windows of the
No, that's
arch.
not, what
Yeah.
I'm saying is that the contractor's billing reflect 10
Exactly.
windows.
Yeah, no, it reflects exactly what they did, which was 3 windows, some roof flashing, some
Another small
smaller
window.
windows. Correct. Stuff like that.
I don't have that.
I tried to find it.
I thought I
Some of this is upside down.
The actual contract from us.
Actually, Jimmy, you had a copy of that.
I did have a copy.
Previous year's application that had Ventrone's application for payment,
And I didn't bring it with me.
and that would not be included in this application.
I don't have it. I have it home, I don't have it.
Well, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing anything with it without documents in front of me. We're going to say that the project wasn't completed according to what we said, without having those documents. So I would ask that we at least table it until the next meeting, so that we can have those documents in front of us.
I mean,
know you have the,
I have a couple of work requests, and it's for the entire amount, $50,053, and the description of what it's for is windows and window-related work. It says nothing about roofing anything, so
Right.
even just that, I mean, and on the invoices, it talks about stuff being done to the roof, so it should really only be window-related costs,
Right.
and it's not that way.
But the overall cost that was requested was less than,
The original,
no, what I'm saying is the overall prices that were requested for payment equal this amount, but there was other work done
Correct.
that was above and beyond
yes.
that money.
Well, you're saying above and beyond.
What I'm saying is that the 50,023
Mhm.
was work that we authorized.
Correct.
Anything above that work. Right, so 10 windows.
That's the
So this is-
actual agreement from the
Right.
city.
The agreement was 10 windows, former Elks Lodge located, didn't say which side, which floor, anything.
Right.
This is the signed document.
Does it say 10-foot wide or anything?
It says 10 windows.
But on the invoice from
Right.
Hanover Properties, it talks about restoration of a small arch top window in the stairwell, repair of aluminum cap flashing on the parapet wall, repair and reinstall copper cladding on east elevation, and restore 3 arched windows and 1 round window on the 3rd floor east side. So it's definitely not 10 windows. So,
So,
Right.
I mean, I remember that application because I was the one that was trying to get those upper 10 windows because I felt that they were the most difficult windows and it would give you the most bang for it. And they changed the glass on it.
Yeah, this was the document.
Yeah.
Does everyone here have a copy of these documents?
Yeah, no, I don't have it now,
Kenny, do you want me to make copies for everybody? Another copy?
I have the electronic version of it.
Okay.
you can send me one, just in case I don't have it.
You'll have to send it to Victor,
Yeah, I'll
too.
send
I
it.
mean, I know he doesn't have any of these documents. What's the board's pleasure?
So I'll make a motion to not fund this project.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'd like to table before we can take a look at it, because I thought.
We got to deal with one motion at a time. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You want to make your motion now?
I'd like to make a motion before we can look into it to see if the 10 windows.
So you
were
want to
done.
table it for tonight,
Table for tonight.
to bring up to the next
And
meeting?
then we can look into it, yeah.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any, no discussion on the table. All in favor? Opposed? So it'll be on the agenda for the next meeting on the allocation
So what
and
we
vote. So we'll basically need to get more information. I will call Mr. Vitrone, since his name seems to come up an awful lot in our meetings lately, and find out what work is done, what work isn't done, what we paid for, and what we didn't pay for.
According to our agreement.
According to our agreement,
I
absolutely.
mean, because our agreement should be 10 windows.
The only work that can be charged out is the work that we agreed to pay for, and that's 10 windows. The rest of it doesn't matter to us, what was done. Next, number 12, bioreserve, land acquisition,
Well,
project number,
That's
oh, I'm
the
sorry,
one
that was
that's not
thrown out,
valid.
I'm sorry. Number 15. Number 15, the first 15 is Eagle Event Center.
Number 7. So, obviously, when we had the interviews, I was not in favor of this project. What has changed my mind was when I received that letter from Mr. Michael Keane indicating that they were going to do a existing conditions report, and seeing the water in the building, seeing the missing windows, the fact that they're going to do a study, which I truly believe is going to identify things that are a lot more critical to the handicap accessibility of the bathrooms, and putting in that metal elevator, as I called it, is the right way to do it. And it's basically what I had recommended during the interview process. So I'm in favor of funding the, is it 94,000 on this project?
One thing I'm gonna bring up is, I've had a lot of conversations from residents unhappy about funding properties that are not city or nonprofit related. I don't know if anyone else on the board has had any conversations with anybody, or and has anyone come to them on any of these things, but I know maybe because I have a business that's very visible, they feel they can come in here, and I've had a lot of negativity on that type of a project, and that's one reason I'm like not, the building's phenomenal, but from the feedback that I'm getting, people are not wanting to fund projects that are privately owned, I'll say. So that's one other consideration I think that needs to be brought into the conversation.
And you and I have discussed this at great lengths, and I'm of the opinion that if it's just city projects and nonprofits, where's the revenue from those nonprofits coming into CPA? Businesses like this and other ones that actually pay taxes, those taxes are actually going into CPA, where the nonprofits, they're not contributing anything. So I don't think that's fair. I understand that certain folks feel that, but I understand that we're following the CPA guidelines, and the CPA guidelines tell you that you can't exclude.
I understand that, but you're missing my point. I'm talking about what a city resident is
Correct.
expecting with their tax dollars going into this fund.
Right.
That's my point.
Right, but the businesses that are putting the money into CPA are being penalized, where the nonprofits are not even putting 1 penny into CPA. So I don't see how that's fair, how that's even remotely fair.
Well, how are you not penalizing the average citizen that's putting their money in if they're also the ones that are feeling that it's not fair because their money is going to a private organization?
So I understand that everybody has an opinion, but they ask this committee to look at these applications and make the best possible decisions that we can.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's going to be half the people that like something and half the people that don't. I look at the application for what it is, and how is it going to give back to the community? So I asked, is there a community use here? The answer came back that there is a community use here, that the space is available for free for the communities. They just look to make some money based on beverages and food, which is their absolute right, but they're putting money into this, just like you and me. Your business is putting money into CPA.
I know that.
Yeah. Yeah. If you were a nonprofit, you wouldn't be putting any money into it.
I see both your views on that.
Yeah.
The Eagle Building definitely, I think, qualifies for funding. The only thing I would say is the kitchen design and that stuff. That would be more private, not historic value. So I would say backing that out would cover taxpayers by saying, you know, we consulted on a kitchen that he's building.
But he's
The
not
rest,
building a
I
kitchen.
think, yeah, but still, we're paying for a consultant to do that. So I think if you back that out, everything else is for historic value.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that, but the space was built to have a kitchen to feed the people there. So when you list out the mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineers, they're looking at the existing systems of the building. It's a type of facility that part of the systems of the building is to have a restaurant. So to go through the exercise of doing existing condition study, and a major component, which is the food part of it, that's kind of tough, considering
Yeah.
the fact that that kitchen isn't open up, I believe is hurting the Eagle.
Yeah.
Because anyone who wants to have an event there has to cater out.
I mean, for me, the 94 is
Right.
no problem. I was just picking out if you wanted to say private citizens was saying it's going into a business. That's, it's only 13, so I'm like,
For me, it's just having a kitchen consultant
Yeah.
looking at it, basically saying the way that it's laid out today versus how it was designed is still good, the kitchen hood is good, you might need extra equipment. They're not buying anything, it's just a review of the existing equipment.
The other thing I'd say about this, how many estimates for this whole project were given?
Well, this
I
is.
mean, do we only require one architect ever on a project, or should we require more than one? Like, I don't know.
So I think we've had this conversation where if it's the city, they're required to put an RFP for architectural services. Where it's a private entity like a Lafayette Derby House, they get to hire Ventrone and just Ventrone. They're not required to go look at other architects. So in this case, the Eagle has said, you know, they might have looked at other architects because I asked a question on the design services of that number. Say, oh, I got an architect. I'm like, I don't see it. But it was Mike Keene that they had. Now we get an application that's really from Mike Keene that's explaining exactly everything in study-wise, which that study is then gonna come back and say, we need a new roof. We need to put the windows. We need to do those things before we fund handicap accessible bathrooms
So
or.
under number 6, project budget, we have, which we went through this last year, we've updated our funding because it was lacking in the past few years. We updated this year, we all agreed to the funding application. Under budget, number 6, CPA funding for any category requires competitive bidding unless you can provide a sole source justification for any category not competitively selected.
But I never assumed that was for architect or engineering services,
Why is that?
because that's how we've done it for the last 3 years.
What does that matter? Just because we've done it, we could just continue to do things the way we...
No, so,
No, I'm just saying, like,
Right.
I don't think we were adhered to some of the things we put in, that's why we updated that.
I hear you. So here's the perspective from my architecture firm and clients that we work with. We're called to provide a proposal, and we know that we're not the only proposal that's being submitted, okay? We know that we have 2-3 other companies that put in a submittal, but that client might hire us based on relationships. We might not be the lowest bidder. They might just feel more comfortable with that connection that they make with us. So for the designer services, you never have to hire the lowest bidder. And I think, Kenny, that would be true for city property.
Well, sometimes you don't have the option of knowing the money until you pick the
So should
person,
we,
so.
so should we update the funding round if you do a feasibility study, or you don't need competitive bidding? What, should we put that in? If your architectural services are needed, we don't need competitive bidding?
So here's.
I'd like to put that in.
So here's an example. So the North End puts in an application for feasibility, so existing condition study at North Park. We contacted a whole bunch of landscape designers. We picked a certain landscape designer. They gave us the estimates. We put in the application. They weren't even invited to the table until I brought it up and say, hey, can you guys submit a proposal? Because it was somebody completely different. So even when the person is selecting, you're ending up with some other designer. That
Yeah, the only argument to that,
Yeah, but
though, is
it's a
the fact that a city project, doesn't even, apply.
We went
Because the
through
city
that.
is going to go out for bids anyway.
Yeah.
The city's gonna go out for proposals, and they're gonna pick the most qualified,
Mhm.
All right,
let me
with the
tell-
argument. Private is a different story.
Out of the 2 or the 3 in the city, in the area, who would be the most qualified?
I'm not an architect, and I'm not someone coming up with a proposal, so I don't know any of that.
So-
Like, that's not my responsibility to come up with an architect.
So I would say that I am comfortable with this application as it is.
My issue with it is not the feasibility study, which I think is a great idea.
It's an
It's-
existing condition study.
Oh, existing condition, okay. it's that wasn't what they applied for in the first place.
Well, that's the recommendations that we gave them, so when they come before us and we have this back and forth, and we say, you're missing this, you're missing that, we're asking them to update their application, and that's exactly what they've done in this case. And, I mean, I can't tell you just this year how many times I told Maritime Museum that they needed an architect. I'm sure there were at the cultural center. I said they needed an architect, and then at the last meeting, they have Mount Vernon Group showed up. I mean, I've been
So
saying.
does that seem like it's something we should be saying in the eligibility round?
I understood way back that we were going to put that projects that required building permits required to hire a designer. We've had that discussion either last year or the year before.
See, my understanding is when you give them that recommendation, I wasn't understanding it as come back and for this round of funding and do it that way. Mine is come back at the next round because this is what we want to see before. Like, we won't fund this. That was my understanding. I didn't think it meant going from this application to like a completely different
But it's not
thing
different.
with it.
To me, it's not different because it was part of the interview process. So the first round is to see if the project falls within one of these categories. And they just give us some rough numbers there. So between September 1 and February 1, they put in their application that we've received. Then we have a meeting with them and we discuss their applications. We tell them the things that we like and we tell them the things that we don't like. We make recommendations, and for this particular project, I indicated I don't like these metal elevators. I had issues with the carpet off of the elevator. I had issues with the handicap bathrooms. And I said, and I even want to do a site visit so that I can see this for myself. That application was for $250,000. All of a sudden, and it was an application that said architectural design services, which I thought was a super low number. After pushing, that applicant came back, got the architect like we want, and put together a existing conditions report at substantially less than their original $250,000 application.
But wasn't
That's got
the
nothing to do with it.
application to actually do work and this is to do?
This is going to identify what's wrong with the building. So for example, the central fire station.
Right, no, I understand
Yeah.
that, but what I'm saying is that is a completely different thing than what they were originally asking for, which was for
Yes, it
money
is,
to
Tony.
actually do these
Originally, they were gonna
things.
do work. Now we have a
Now it's
study of the
just a
entire
study.
building.
To
It's
me, that's
two
a
totally different
completely
things. How can you say it's not?
application.
No, it's
It is.
It's historical preservation.
I understand that, Tony. I'm not
But
saying
one
that.
was to do work, funding to do work, now we're funding a study. To me, that's a completely different application.
This funding study is more important than any.
And I'm not saying
not
it's
saying
not,
that.
I agree with you,
We're not saying
but
that.
it's not the same
don't listen.
application.
I am listening. You're trying to tell me that they're different, but they're not. I mean, it's.
It's the same building. It's the same building. I
Isn't that
get
what it
that.
is? It's historical preservation.
I understand that.
And so why do we even have interviews? Why do we even make recommendations?
Why do we have this that says we should have more? I want to change this then next year, that when we have private or nonprofit organizations, you only need one architect. We don't need two estimates. Is that what you're saying?
So, based on that, we're not gonna get any of them. Because it's like going to the well one too many times. Once I contact this architect, I can't contact them the following year because
I don't know.
he didn't get a
I'm not an
project.
architect and I don't know anything about it. Maybe that's true. So, but I'm saying from now on, all we need is they can pick any architect they want and that's what we go with, correct?
So when we had this discussion
That's
with
fine.
Stewart, and I remember asking this, they said that the private projects, they're able to select who they want to do these projects. That was year number one. That was one of the
I don't have a
questions
very
that I
good
had.
memory.
So,
I wasn't being one, so I can't, but that's not even my issue. My issue is not the architect. My issue is that the application was to fund for like $250,000 to do all of this work. I know the recommendations that you made, but to me,
do you feel comfortable
that's a-
funding $250,000 for that application?
no, because I agree a study was needed to be done, but to
All of
me,
them.
that's a completely different application for a different time.
All of these projects require a design professional to be involved in somehow.
I think in the fall, we should say that right away.
We've been
in the
saying that every year.
We didn't say that in the eligibility round. We said that in the eligibility round, Tony, seriously?
We recommend this every single year.
So in the eligibility round, we recommended it and it wasn't done correctly the first time around to the first funding, is that what you're saying?
So the eligibility round,
think we say
we
it
don't
too
even
late.
talk to them.
We're saying it after the fact. We're saying
They
it
come
after the
before us in front of the
applications.
eligibility. They come before us in
They're
eligibility.
supposed to.
So from the September application to the February application, they're completely different, every single time. Every applicant comes in here, oh, it's a rough number. We'll bring a number, we don't actually know what it is until we contact contractors, and then we finally actually get the real number. And then it goes from being, oh, we were looking for 50,000 to, oh, we need 380,000. That
That's not
happens
true.
every
But
single time.
numbers do not change the actual makeup of an application from funding work being done to now funding a study. That's a completely different application, that's not the
We
same
will
thing.
agree to disagree. I see this as a historical preservation category.
Yes, and
This
I'm
is
not
the-
disagreeing with
This
that.
is the most important part and should be the first thing that every applicant does.
And I agree with
So
that.
for them to be doing the correct thing, after that was the recommendation based on the last interview, I don't know what I can do. I mean, I don't feel like I can make any future recommendations, like, okay, the application that you gave, thank you very much, we don't even need to talk to you. We don't need to give you any recommendations. I mean, why did Dave Heber send us 3 separate emails? Because we requested that documentation. And he provided, he didn't provide me with the documentation that I needed, but
I understand what you're saying, and it makes sense what you're saying. What I want to know, moving forward to next year, when it comes up to a private project, are we just going to say you only need one architect, and we don't care who it is? And it's nothing to do with Michael Keane, it's got
No.
nothing to do with Eagle. I'm just saying, I want to know what our plan is.
my response to that is Stewart, because I remember asking the question, let's ask him if he indicated that on the private side, that the applicant was able to hire whatever architect that he wants. And let's see what he
Okay,
says.
that's fine. I mean, I'm willing to table this. I'm not saying no to this project, but I mean, maybe we'll ask him a question, send it to him, and we'll just get a response on that, and we'll have clarity on that. I'm not against the project.
I'm sending him 2 questions right now.
Okay.
Okay, one
That's
is
fine.
procedure after the city council votes on it, and then the second one is, can you please confirm that on the private sector, that they're able to select their one architect?
And I'm
Or-
not against
I'm not
against
either.
this study either. I just don't think it's the same application
That'll
that
be
came
question
in.
number 3.
Okay.
How's that?
That's
That'll be
fine.
question
That's
number
fine,
3.
that's fine.
Could I get a motion to table this item?
I'll make a
Until
motion
the
to
next
table
meeting?
this item.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Charlie.
So the item's tabled until our next meeting in a couple of weeks. Next item is City of Fall River Park wires, $250,000.
Make a motion not to fund it.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? I will just add my 2 cents, being one of the people who was always looking for money to do work in parks and cemeteries and everywhere else. The request for this money, whether it was well-written, not written, I do recall the statement of no more park grants being issued until those wires are buried. The city's lifeblood is grants. We do nothing without it. We don't pay for anything ourselves. So if we're going to continue to have our hand out looking for money, then we're going to have to follow the rules like everyone else does in the state. So a no on this particular funding, not that it falls on our laps, but I'm going to make that statement that a no on this particular funding, if the city doesn't pick up the $250,000, then it's not just $250,000. It's park grants from this point forward until they do this work. So that's my 2 cents worth on this particular piece.
And I think Chris also indicated that this was more than just the 3 historical parks.
This is all parks.
Right. So if it's all parks, then it doesn't qualify under historical preservation.
Well, I guess we could say that if you took the square footage or the acreage of every park, the Olmsted parks make up the majority of the city parks. So percentage-wise, linear foot-wise, I would think that 200,000 of this is probably a legitimate number. Because we're only talking about Maplewood, which has 2 or 3 light poles in it, and a park like Turner with none. Lafayette with no overhead lights except for 2 security lights, as opposed to Kennedy North and Ruggles with all of the lighting that's in those parks. So if the argument is historic preservation over anything else, then I think that is easily fixed by us eliminating the other parks and their linear footage and adjusting the dollar amount. We've adjusted the dollar amount for other things here tonight to the good. All I'm saying is that if that's the stigma here, if that's what our problem is, then we shouldn't use that as the piece.
Now,
I'm only saying
I have
it myself, but
I have a question. Like, is the city aware that they cannot get
Yes, they are.
grants? So what is the city doing about it?
Make an application to CPA.
So when I see pictures of North Park,
no-
Ruggles, Kennedy Park, I see these
Compensation.
beautiful electrical poles that look like they came out of India, you know, and it's just historical parks. I mean,
Except they don't give much light, and in a park that, like Kennedy and North, with vandalism every single day, just about, that look just really doesn't light up the park. And you don't stop vandalism in the dark.
I agree with you, but I believe that there's an ordinance that says no one's supposed to be in the park after sunset. So we
With
don't
10
follow
police
our own
officers
rules.
on at night, it's very difficult for them to patrol the parks when they're trying to patrol the streets. So I don't mean to be cynical about all of this stuff, but I have to be because I was on that other side. And I know firsthand, better than anyone, including the current people there now, with the exception of Nancy Smith, the issues that those departments have to deal with.
So Ken, what would be your recommendation on this? And the reason I'm
My
asking you is
recommend-
because as a board member who's really not affiliated with the city,
Yep.
as a department in any kind of way, and just a resident, I'm really need to be educated. So I'm kind of like looking to you as some
If you
good
look,
advice, and I will go
my
with that,
vote was a
'cause-
number 2, so it wasn't a number 1 on my vote, and that's only because my personal opinion is that we should be taking care of buildings with this money, because there is an opportunity that buildings hit a wrecking ball, and I don't think that right now our parks are in danger of having houses built on them yet. So that was why it's a number 2. I don't know the answer to, well, I have a partial answer to why the city is not doing this kind of work on their own, because obviously funds are limited. And does this rise to that, does this rise over fire apparatus, police cruisers, school funding, net school funding, does it rise to that level? I'm gonna say no. However, I do believe that the ramifications of not doing this haven't really been looked at as to how bad it could be. And if you think about, we've been almost getting maximum park grants for a long time. From the state has been very, very good to us in EOEEA. And to lose $250,000 to $300,000 every year of funding.
So did, like, in Kennedy Park, did the basketball courts get kind of put in just before this
Yes.
came along? Like,
Yes.
the
So-
problem?
so-
If that
so the
wouldn't
parks are
happen
done-
today.
I
They
might,
would-
well,
they would-
we wouldn't have been able to
Those
apply
are-
for the grant. You wouldn't have been able to apply.
Like, they wouldn't get that grant
Right.
today, like,
Exactly.
until that's changed.
The basic comment is put the wires underground, or we're not gonna approve any more funding.
That's from the
Through
state.
park, that's from the state. So that's my issue with this particular piece. And as I said, I gave it a 2, I didn't give it a 1. Because I felt personally that buildings have more of a danger of falling in disrepair. The lights are on. It's not imminent danger, it's the issue that we have with funding in the future that bothers me. And I'm not saying it's this board's responsibility either, because unfortunately, we're one of the few boards who have money.
Well,
So,
but I mean, we still have to make decisions on things that are gonna affect a lot of people. And our parks are used by a lot of people, so it's something I think we need to heavily weigh in the fact that if we're gonna be missing out on funding,
Yeah, that I didn't know.
that kind of factors more into my feeling on.
I've never seen anyone electrocuted because of the
No,
But
barbed
it's
but,
not-
wire.
but it's-
no, I
that's not the
understand that,
point.
that's not
The
the
point
point,
is the
but I
state is
don't know
saying-
like what Kenny's saying as far as like, we're not gonna get
Right.
any extra funds
So
from
it-
the
it
state
would-
if we don't do
right.
this.
It would have
Like,
been helpful if Chris Gallagher would have provided that requirement in writing from the state.
Correct.
He didn't do that. You know, do I table this to give me a comfort level with that documentation? I mean, I've never heard such a thing. I mean, I walk down the sidewalk every day and there's wires over my head.
So can we, do you want it, can we table this until we get that actual document from Chris
we can
Gallagher?
make the request.
And if he,
So-
If we don't get it, we don't get it.
that's good.
So
I
right
think that's
now,
fair.
we had a motion and then you made a second. Are you
I'm
withdrawing?
I'm withdrawing my
Okay.
motion, yes,
Then
I
you
am.
make your new motion.
My new motion is we'll table this until Chris Gallagher gets us the documentation stating that parks will not get grants until these park wires are put underground.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Next item is, we have 3 number 17s. First number 17 is CFC Children's Home. Porch, 56,000.
Go ahead.
Do you wanna go over?
Nope.
Okay, so for me, this was historic preservation. I don't think that it can really be considered historic preservation when the porch is not historically accurate to begin with. You have a ramp coming down off that porch. So unless the porch was restored to being historically accurate, I'm not like.
There's a lot, I mean, I went by it just this week and the bricks underneath the porch immediately, like, you can see the whole porch needs to be like,
Right,
so I think it's very premature, I'll say.
yeah.
Um,
But also, it really is not historically accurate porch. If you were gonna move the ramp to a different part of the building and restore the porch to what it's supposed to historically be, then I have no problem with that. I think that's great. But I can't support it based on what it is now.
I mean, I agree with that. I think having a ramp in the front of a building like it is, just does such a disservice to that beautiful building. I would have loved if they had considered looking at other options to put that ramp someplace else, and then that ramp could have been included into the application, at least the relocating or rebuilding of it. But, I mean, I put a number 1 on it, because the majority of the porch would be restored, except for that one opening where the ramp comes in. But, it's not a very pretty ramp.
Did you even see the brick underneath though? Did you
I
know?
mean, there's windows without glass, I mean, or a piece of pipe.
I mean, they would be restoring the porch on top of this part that's like kind of falling apart.
Yeah.
So it's like nowhere in there does it say it's gonna like fix the foundation
No, it doesn't.
of the porch. So kind of, maybe we could, go ahead. Think of it, if we decide not to fund it in a letter of denial or whatever we call that, maybe we could put in a recommendation of what we would like to see in the next year.
If they had submitted a letter stating that they're going to hire an architect, I would absolutely be 100% in favor of this. But they didn't do it. Their estimates is based on a carpenter he does good work. He did the Historical
Historical
Society.
Society, yep.
But again, I don't see that professional that would be able to say, this is the historical accuracy of this porch, and I know it's been modified.
Maybe like it's if in a letter moving forward, we can say that to them.
You're gonna write it.
You know more about it than me.
You guys said you wanted the ramp moved. I can write it, I can put some notes, I don't mind, but I voted number 1 on it. So I'm in favor of it regardless. I mean, it's a children's home. It would be a vast improvement to what's there. It wouldn't be a full 100% restoration, but I'm very happy with a 90% restoration. They're
But
not
does
touching
it-
the existing ramp.
But does it count? That was my thing, is if you're going, if it's historical, falls under historical preservation, but it's,
Well, we can make an operable
you know what I'm saying? It's
gate.
still supposed to be Secretary of Interior standards, and how is that gonna happen with a ramp
But
that's
like
not?
you
I
say-
don't
That's
believe in
my
improvement, I think it should be historically accurate.
But like you say,
Proving it
looking at
doesn't
the
count.
foundation of the
And
porch,
does it
the bricks are
even
kind of
fall
coming
under the
apart. So I mean,
standards?
it would only make sense to fix the bricks before you start fixing the
Well,
porch.
it would be part of the fix.
But is that in it?
But
I don't
that-
know.
I don't think that was-
The
I don't
estimate's
think
not
that
in there
was
for
in it. I
that.
thought
I
it was
think it's
just
just for the
painting.
wood and painting.
I hear you, but I see all these applications with missing stuff on it. So, I mean,
Well,
I'm in favor of it.
make a
Hey,
recommendation.
I have to put on my other board hat from the Disability Commission and say that I have a real tough time voting for anything that doesn't allow equal access, meaning same door, and moving a ramp to another door or another place in the building is not equal access. And every opportunity should be made to make it equal access and try to keep the integrity of the building. So if we can't make everybody go through the same door, then maybe they need to change the door and not worry about that front porch anymore.
Mhm.
And that's my 2 cents.
I think when I was looking at it and thinking about moving the ramp over to the side of the building, it actually provided those kids that are going into the playground a lot easier access of getting to the playground than that one handicap entrance in the front of the building that they would then have to go out on the sidewalk outside of the property to then get back on the property. So I felt that it was a better situation.
Do we have any recommendations as to where we want to?
I'll make
This
a
thing to land?
motion to fund the 56,000.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
It's my opinion, I'm not really.
Well,
funding it.
no. If that's, if people are comfortable with 56 staying there, then we don't need a motion.
And so it'll just be just as they said in the application, just the reconstruction of the porch, not the foundation.
Well, no, the foundation would have to be fixed. I mean, in order
But
to
that's not
restore
in the
it.
estimates though.
That's,
Well, that's where they're going to have it paid for out of their pocket.
But are we gonna put in the acceptance letter that you need to fix the porch too? I mean, the foundation
yeah,
too?
how do you?
So when they go for a building permit and it's showing these beautiful drawings of how they're gonna restore the porch, whoever's going to do those drawings is going to have to address what's holding the porch in place. And if they don't address it there, I'm sure the building inspector, when he comes to do the sign off, is going to say, you mean to tell me you restored this brand new porch on a foundation that's falling apart? Obviously, the children's home is going to have to pay for that amount of work if they didn't include it in this application. And the last piece that I would say, everything's restored except for the opening where the ramp is connecting to it. I'm hoping that in the future, when they do move that, they can then just infill that 6 foot, 8 foot section.
But see, that was just my question. It's not even that I don't like the project or,
Right.
my question is, can we fund it under historic preservation if the porch is not historically
Well,
accurate? Like, does it count,
right.
like, if there's a ramp, does
So-
it count?
It must.
That's my question.
So back to Kenny's point, where the Secretary of Interior standards states in historical preservation that every effort should be made
Mhm.
to make the front of the building accessible. Only if it's such a, I don't know, I forget the word that they used, that then you would locate it to another part of the building. So even through the Secretary of Interior standards, they understand and address that you try to make the front of the building accessible, which is Kenny's point.
Okay.
That makes
So
sense.
so it can still count?
I believe 100% that it still
Okay,
counts.
then I don't have an issue. That was my question, because that was my hesitancy, because I wasn't sure if it could still count for
I mean,
historic preservation, that's why
I still agree that it should be on the side.
I do too, but,
But I made a motion to fund it for the full amount, which is.
Well, if nobody has any objections, we don't need the vote. If nobody has any objections to keeping it at 50, at 56.
And now,
For the funding.
will we have specific writing in our acceptance, you know, if it moves forward?
It's basic construction, they have to build something on a foundation that is sound. So if that is beyond the 56,000, they should come up with the money. And that's how it's been for everybody else.
Next item is academic handicap accessibility and sprinkler system, $461,000.
So I was the only one that put a 1 on it. I don't agree with the 461. So for me, it's a choice between funding a handicap accessible elevator and funding a sprinkler system. So when I look at this application, I'm more in favor of just funding an elevator that would make the building accessible. So that's what I would be in favor of providing this applicant.
In the form of a motion?
I'll make a motion that, when it comes time to voting, that we vote just to fund the elevator.
Do we don't have a dollar amount on that, do we? Separate
Yes,
amount?
I think if I remember correctly, the amount was still high, but I would still be in favor of another number. I think it was still in the 300,000, but I would be in favor of the 250,000.
So you have a motion to fund the project for $250,000. Do we have a second on that? I'll second that.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Kenny, who seconded that? Who made the second?
Kenny
I did.
Kenny.
Yeah, I'm sorry. All in favor? Opposed? The opposition has it. Are we letting it go in the full amount? Or does someone have another?
Is 200,000? I'll make a recommendation for 200,000 instead of the 250.
I'm not in favor of the project, so,
All right, so that's what we need to hear.
yeah, I just said it.
Yeah.
It's like,
No, but well, Kenny asked before, no one said anything, so you're just not in favor of anything at all.
right.
And it goes back to the same thing like with Dave Huber, where it's a for-profit company.
That, and also, I'd like to see the first phase of this project finished too. Like, it's not quite finished, I don't think.
But well, we just got the letter yesterday from Sandy, which shows that they've put in the building.
It's more than one reason for you, that's one,
Yeah.
and it's also the for-profit thing that is kind of like, you know, I'm kind of listening to that too.
So for me, from all of the applications, this is the one application where they've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars already to get the building renovated, that they have 3 true estimates from big name contractors in there. So we know that they're putting a whole lot of money there. We have a letter from a bank that they're getting loans for. So from all of the applications, they've really provided everything. They got over 20 different organizations, nonprofits that use the building. So that's why, for me, it was easy to fund an elevator to help them out. With the roof, I see it's under progress. We can ask Mike what the actual progress is. Maybe he can give us more information today, but I see that work is moving on. We saw it on the Herald News that they were up on the roof doing stuff, so I see that it's working. I'm agreeing to fund the school administration building, and, you know, technically that,
Not even started.
but I know it's going to happen,
Mhm.
you know? It's just a matter of, you know.
So my question, if you gave them the 250 or the 200
Mhm.
toward doing that, are they gonna be able to do the rest of the work?
So, like Mr. Hebert's application where we offered 50,000 for 10 windows, if it goes beyond that, it's on the applicant to finish the windows at his cost. So if this elevator goes beyond the 250,000, then Academica would have to pay for the remainder of it. And I would make a motion that they wouldn't be allowed to come back and ask for more for that elevator. And I think we've made those motions in the past.
Yeah.
Where we said we will agree as long as you understand that you can't come back and ask for more money.
Well, we're not asking for the funds today. We're not voting on funds today.
It's either to keep the project alive, or to stop it, or to modify it. That's all we're deciding today.
Well, could you state your name?
Michael Keane, Civitas Architects. Just to let the board know, the commission know, we were retained back in March by Academica, primarily out of frustration that there was a lack of progress occurring on the project. So we were retained to perform the roof replacement work. We started in March and completed it in mid-April, and the drawings have been submitted to the building department for a permit. And it's my understanding, after talking with the building department the other day, they were expecting the permit by Friday, tomorrow, possibly Monday or Tuesday of next week. It's within the next few days. And immediately after that, we're looking at mobilization. It should be a very quick project. It's a small roof, it's about 4,300 square feet. So I don't expect it to last more than a couple of weeks after mobilization. So just to give you an update on that piece of the work that we've been retained to do.
If we do nothing today, it stays an active project until next week, until we do the vote.
Okay.
Do we comfortable with that?
Yep,
We don't want to put a number in there just to see where we are budget-wise?
you could. 'Cause
What number would I put in?
well, you said you wanted to fund it.
250?
Yeah.
Only because I've been putting numbers on.
I would like a
Yeah.
vote on that if I could, do that, just to put we're not committing to anything other than the fact that we'd like to keep it active at a 250.
Correct.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so it'll stay active at 250. The final project is Cultural Center Roof, number 9, 481,900.
Kenny, you voted one on it, I'll let you.
Okay, so I was up on the roof, all the roofs. Unlike some of the projects that come before us, there's been numerous efforts to repair the roof. The roof looks like, I relate it to Durfee High School with the amount of patches that are up on it. This one may have more, if that's possible. In fact, there's more patches than there is regular roof left. And the building is relatively pristine, the main part of the building. But it is showing some signs of water infiltration. The back of the building, the kitchen area, is the real bad roof. There's just so many penetrations on that roof, there's not much roof showing. That is part of the project, and then obviously the other roof that's adjoining that. The building has historic value. I think on the inside it's been very well kept up. The outside has lost some of its original look. However, some is still available. The owners have spent money on that building. They are, as Academica, they do a lot of service to the community. A lot of functions are held there free of charge, and I think it's a worthwhile project. I'm a little disappointed at how far down it fell, however. There's a lot of good projects that we had this year, so with that being said, I would ask that if we can't fund the entire project, which is quite a large sum, that we make an effort to put a smaller amount in there that would cover one of the other roofs and keep that active until the voting round.
I'd be in favor of either of those options, but the higher option with the 461, I wouldn't mind that as long as it would be bonded. Because again, here's another applicant who has the building available for nonprofits. This is a cultural center. I mean, it gets used by lots of groups. So for me, it's a staggering number.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to see the whole roof fixed, but I think the only way that we could do that is if this project is bonded. If this committee doesn't think we should go that route, then like Kenny, you indicated, we should pick one of the other roofs at a more reasonable cost.
What would be the total, Ken?
The total
Amount that you would think?
Tony, what is, I don't have my sheet.
So right now it's 461 is the request.
Right, I think in the request there's a breakdown of roofs.
Yeah.
Right here. Right here.
Yep, so they have, they have a foyer roof for 177,300. I think they have the ballroom roof for 95,800. They got the kitchen roof for 72,900, and then some cast iron leaders. So there's 3 roofs called out, one for 177, another one for 95, and the third for 73, basically.
I'd say at least do the kitchen, if that's
Yeah,
what you say.
I'm saying that the back roof is the one that was, seemed to be in the worst condition. The only issue with that is, I mean, this is in the worst condition, but the ballroom is the,
It's a
Money.
function room.
Right.
yeah,
That's a
but it's
function
So
a
that would be what,
function room.
160 for both those?
95,800 is the ballroom
So the two combined would be,
with the wood, oh. So 95 and like 96 and 73 for the ballroom and the kitchen.
So when I look at it, I always like to go with the more expensive of the roofs to allow the applicant to fix the other ones at least cost to them. So the one that says foyer roof, I'm thinking that's the one closest to the South Main Street.
That'd be the function room. That'd be the
No, it's a
function
whole
No, that would
hall,
be
that's
like
just the
the
front entrance, it's the front entrance, the offices, and the main foyer before you go into the main hall, and the kitchen.
So that's at 177.
I do have a question before we get to the numbers. Cape Way Roofing,
Yeah.
is this another thing that we should they just pick one company and never have another recommendation?
So they had Cape Way by themselves, and then when George Figueredo from Mount Vernon Group came at that meeting, he had another roofing system and company in
Yeah, I
there.
think it was the second, is there a second?
He had a second estimate.
I thought that night they handed us something.
I don't
Yeah,
remember
he
seeing
did
it.
give us a second one.
Yeah,
That night.
yeah, he handed it.
So is that one less expensive than this one?
No, I think it was about the same.
We don't know. I don't remember the.
I know
I don't
Cape
remember the
Way's kinda
paperwork.
high.
But I mean, it's something that we could look at in the next.
If I find it, I'll send it to everybody over an email.
So could we table it? If
Well-
that's, or do you want to?
No, I mean, you keep move forward, but is there another, you said there's, I I pretty much kept everything I kept together with each applicant, but I don't seem to have that.
I thought it came.
He might have only had 1 or 2 copies, which I grabbed,
Because
and
I'm
I thought I
thinking,
scanned it.
is the
and sent
other
it out.
application like, you know, a better competitive rate, like a bid or whatever, I don't know.
I agree with you, because their, Cape Way's estimate was around $20 a square foot or $25 a square foot. And I've been doing a lot of roofs around $18 a square foot, so. But what we're talking here is, there's 3 roofs that are identified. We're talking about selecting one of them, possibly 2 of them. So it's still not the full amount. And we're not doing the cast iron leaders, and Mount Vernon Group Architects are doing the work pro bono. I think if we use the 177 number for the purposes of the math, when you add up the ballroom, 95 in the kitchen, and 72, that ends up at 160. So you either do 1 roof for 177 or 2 roofs for 160. So the numbers are very close to each other for the purpose of this exercise. So I would feel comfortable showing 177, 300. And then we can discuss it at the next go around.
In the form of a motion?
I make a motion that right now we show 1 roof at 177, 300, and leave it open to decide on which of the 3 roofs we're going to do.
You have a second? You have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on it? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Since John is not here tonight to talk about the intern, that was the last item on the agenda. Sandy, we don't have anything on that? Okay. Before we adjourn, I'd like to set the next meeting.
What did Tony come up with a total?
Oh, I'm sorry.
1,694,167.
And we have what, 1,000,003?
1,000,003. So we got
Does that include the tables?
let me see. Park wires, I have 0 right now. You want to put 200?
Well, any of the tabled items in there?
Yes. The Eagle event space for 94,000 is in there. Want me to show 0 on there for now?
Well, I'm thinking if you show 0 on all of those for now, because none of them have been decided.
So that's the only one that I had added, a number 2. The Elks is showing a 0. Park wires is showing a 0. Everything else has a number, and right now it's exactly 1.6 million. So $1,600,167. So we're over by 300,000.
Okay. And the outstanding projects would add another 600,000 to that? Roughly?
Outstanding.
At full, the projects that were tabled.
So those are the ones with the 0. So 250 or 200 for the park wires, 150 for the Elks, and the Eagle is 94,000.
So 600, 5 and change, okay.
So that totals with those in it?
No,
One
it's
means,
not.
oh,
So
no, it's
you have
nothing
to
with
add
those.
that, 6 on top of that.
6.
So you'd be 2.1. 2.2. One other item is the number 28, Stanley Street Fire Station roof replacement for 165. This was that emergency request.
So are we voting today for the emergency request, or are we doing what we did last year where we're saying we're including them?
I would like to see us do what we did before, but that's my opinion.
That's my opinion.
So we are voting to include them in the round with everybody else?
Yes.
Okay.
Any discussion on that building amount?
So I watched the historical commission meeting, and I have to say that I was extremely disappointed that Chris Gallagher didn't show up. That was,
He had a valid reason.
that's fine. I think he could have asked anybody else to show up in his place.
There was somebody there that spoke for him.
The new planner. And secondly is, there was no letter at that meeting from Kathy Ann indicating that she wanted to have this building put on the register. I do understand that you all voted to include the building on the register as long as you received the letter from
I
Kathy
did
Ann.
receive it. He actually had that letter. The letter was written, I just didn't have it that day, and I do have that letter, so it's all
It's
set.
just, this is the
Yeah.
first time that I'm hearing about it, because from that meeting, it was left that, you know, Chris Gallagher wasn't there, and the letter wasn't shown up, so that was those two items.
Yep, no, those are both all taken
I-
care of.
Item number 3 for me is, I don't understand why they don't put a patch on it, and then just come to the next meeting. I'm sure this Stanley Street station is no different than Central, where the interior of the building is just as important as the exterior. And I would love to see a existing conditions study for this building. Temporary patch goes in, they come back September 1st, ask for a slate or imitation slate roof. I would like to see it. You know, have an architect involved. Again, another example of another hastily put together presentation. Yes, they need a new roof, but has anyone gone up there and put some sulfur-tier flashing just to prevent the water from coming in?
I've talked to people in the fire department, yeah, they've tried everything. They have offices that have cans all over the place.
Right.
I mean,
See, that to me is a health issue, and those firemen shouldn't be in that building.
right.
Which would
I think
make
it's
it an
beyond just
emergency
patching.
application versus having them in there, and someone like me could say, you can put a temporary patch on roofs. It's just not done well enough, or I don't know who's doing it. So for me, personally, is this an emergency? Not until the building department goes in and tells those guys that it's not a healthy condition to have water dripping down. Because if it was an apartment in anybody's house, those people would be out of that building and in the hotel. And I say that with love for the fire department, because I want those people to be in a good, healthy building. And these older fire stations, they're not up to standard. That's all.
But you still need to start somewhere, and somewhere would be a roof,
Right,
to
so,
make it at least the
so we do
conditions
the
would be
roof,
safer.
and they're still in a building filled with asbestos and all these other issues, and I mean, I could just go on and on.
You're right.
I mean,
But I mean, I hear what you're saying, and you're right about what you're saying too, but I look at it and it's like, do we want it to end up like the old police station did? Where they just kind of didn't do anything. Now, like, each year we just degrade more. As much as I still think that building is savable,
Mhm.
it's in horrific condition. And just do we,
Right. I think this goes back to the definition of what is considered an emergency, and this board has not come to a good conclusion of
Mhm.
what is an emergency. To me, an emergency is a building is potentially on the cusp of being demolished, and you need to buy it to save it. Or here's a building where people can't be in it because it's unsafe. You know, the fact that the building is still being used and someone's there, you know, with a bucket holding water. How come no one from that station has called the building department? Hey, come on down, look at this. You think this is acceptable? I think right there, the city would, it's $8 million that it has available someplace, that they could come up with some money to get a roofer in there to fix that right away, to get that station open. But instead, hey, let's go to CPA. Call it an emergency when they're in the building. I'm gonna stop right there.
I have to agree with you.
I mean, they use the ad building and it's still leaking.
Right.
Some people have like 10, 12 cans in their office.
Which puts it in the same category and they're still
Yeah.
there, so.
I mean,
And they didn't
so
use
they're
it
not
as a
kicking
good.
them out, so
They,
I
and
mean-
they followed the exact chain of events like you're supposed to have the building done, so. I agree.
Somebody has to be a bad guy.
I agree with you, Tony, to that point.
I want those firemen to be in a safe building. And I think we should do everything that we have to. But fixing the roof is not going to fix what I think are even more serious issues inside the building, inside Central Street. And I know it because I went inside Central Street. I haven't been inside of Stanley, so it's easy for me to say, I don't think it's an emergency. So, I'm gonna stop.
What's the board's pleasure? 165,000, live to fight another day? Or 165,000, no? Or a different amount? 3 options.
I'd say keep the 165 on the table.
And let it go through the process?
Yeah.
I think the process is we need to first vote that it's considered an emergency.
I think we need to vote whether or not we want it to add on. I don't think we need to vote whether it's an emergency.
Okay.
We already
We
did.
either accept it
Oh, we did?
as
Well,
an,
we did.
yeah, we
Okay.
accept
We already
it as
did
a
bring it in as
project,
an
but
emergency.
if you want to keep it as a project alive, then we move it. If we don't, I would like a vote to move it to put it on the agenda for the next meeting, but I don't need any other vote other than that one.
So that's one motion, right?
If we can have a motion to, if someone wants to make that motion, to move it on.
I make a motion to move it on.
Have a second? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on it? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Meeting for, I would urge the board to try and have a meeting before the end of this month so that we can submit this for a June meeting. We will be involved in the budget at this point because we're a little late. So the week of,
Next week.
well, we can do next week or we can do the week of the 17th. I'm sorry, the week of Monday the 14th.
May 10th, next Thursday, it's fine.
We could.
Get to-
Let the, those who are, sorry,
Can't on Thursday because that's a war council meeting
okay.
for veterans.
The other thing we need to do is on the motion, on the tables, Tony, any of those, what did we ask people for? Information they can get in a week? Or they should already have?
Pretty, I think.
Okay.
Pretty much it should be okay
Okay,
in a week.
all right, so the 10th won't work and
14th, okay?
14th is a Monday.
That's good.
I have a school committee meeting on the 14th. Tuesday's a city council meeting, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Is it?
The 8th is the city council
Oh,
meeting.
so Tuesday the 15th.
We have a historical commission meeting. So
Okay. Wednesday the 16th,
That's
I can't.
okay.
17th?
Thursday the 17th?
that's the war council meeting.
Oh, that's right.
How about next week, like Tuesday or Wednesday? This way you can make it in time for the next council meeting, which is the 22nd.
Wednesday the 9th.
Wednesday the 9th, does that work?
that works for me.
That's fine.
Okay.
So next Wednesday?
Wednesday the 9th at 6 PM.
I got planning board meeting.
You go to planning board.
That's the planning board meeting. Probably.
Let me see what you voted on.
I don't know, we could probably make it.
The planning board's in here, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I'll make this.
So
right.
6:30?
If I do it at 6:30.
So why don't we do 6:30 on the
Yeah.
9th?
Kill two birds that day.
Okay. Any further business?
Yeah.
Question.
wanna try that? The only thing I wanted to add is I'm going to be sending everybody a revised score sheet, and it's going to show a total of 17 projects that we're going to vote on.
Okay.
So I think there's going to be 6 number 1s, 6 number 2s, and 5 number 3s. So I'll spell it out in the email.
Okay.
Maybe I'll get it right this time.
Can-
I'll hand deliver it to you, how's that?
Does anybody need anything between now and next week? Any information that I need to get anybody? You're gonna come and see, yeah, Vic's gonna come and see me this week, but does anyone need any information from this meeting?
If I think of anything, I'll
Just email me, make sure everybody gets anything.
The board will request, so the items that are tabled, I think the only thing we're gonna need We're gonna need from the Elks a clarification from the architect, work completed, contractor, work completed. For 10, yeah, the work completed according to our funding agreement for those two items. On the Eagle, we don't need it.
No, the park wires, we were asking.
Park wires, we need a letter from EOEEA, the Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs,
And they can't.
saying that the park grant will not be issued unless those wires are buried, or some kind of bulletin that they sent out around that. Is that it?
And so,
Okay. Very good. Motion to adjourn?
make a motion?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.